All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Ryan Roberts. I play oboe and English horn in the New York Philharmonic, and it is very early here in Los Angeles, California. So either good morning or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This morning, I'm going to be chatting with Sophie Oehlers, who is one of the three finalists in the Norma Hooks Young Artist competition this year at IDRS. And I'll just wait for a few people to join, and I see Sophie just popped up here, so let me add her. There we go. All right, hello.
Hi.
Can you see and hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good, that's how I'm starting every lesson nowadays on Zoom, if you can see and hear me. A good thing to check up on.
Yeah.
I will just give it maybe 30 seconds to a minute just to let some people join before we
Yeah, sounds good.
jump right on in. What time zone are you in? Is it 8 in the morning for you
Eastern.
as well? Oh,
No, I'm on the East Coast. Yeah.
okay. So it's, yeah, a little bit more of an appropriate time to be hosting an Instagram live.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. So we have some people flowing in here. I think it says 19 at the top. Pretty good. Um, anyway, I guess, yeah, let's just get started with some introductions. I'll let you go first since you were the
Sure.
guest
Yeah.
of honor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sophie, and I am originally from Collingswood, New Jersey, which probably a lot of oboists know because I actually just live a block away from John Simer. So I feel like a lot of you have been in my hometown. So that is actually where I am right now. But I'm entering my junior year at the University of Colorado in Boulder.
Great. And I'm Ryan Roberts, as I said just about a minute ago, and I play oboe and English horn in the New York Philharmonic, and I did the Norma Hooks Young Artist competition in 2018. And I'm here with one of our three finalists, Sophie Oehlers. Am I saying your last name correctly?
Yes, perfect.
Great, nailed it. Awesome. So let's get started. So you said you're from Collingswood, New Jersey.
Hmm.
And you are currently in your undergrad.
Yes.
Um, what made you decide to play the oboe?
Well, it all started in elementary school, and actually, oboe was my first instrument, which is kind of rare. I feel like a lot of double reeds start on something else and then move to a double reed instrument. But for me, I started playing recorder first. I feel like that's definitely the go-to in elementary school. And at the end of third grade into fourth grade was when we could start picking our own instruments. And at my elementary school, they definitely were not offering oboe, but they were offering all the common things like flute and saxophone, clarinet. And I went to my mom that night because she's a musician, and I said, I definitely want to play an instrument, but I don't want to play anything that they're offering. Like, I just want to be different. And with no hesitation, she said, You're going to play the oboe. And little me was just like, great, never heard of it. Let's go for it. So that's
So
just
it's
kind
your
of how it
mom's fault.
started. Yes, it is my mom's fault. I blame her all the time for it. So yeah, but that's how it all started. And I started taking lessons for a few years and then actually stopped for about a year. My teacher moved away and I just kind of stopped playing in middle school. And then I picked lessons up again. And then in high school was when I realized that I definitely wanted to continue with music.
Great. And what were your early experiences like on oboe? Were you playing in chamber ensembles? Were you in youth orchestras? Was it just your school programs, or how did you, get into ensembles in the first place?
Yeah, so in middle school, I auditioned for one honors band in the area and was just in band in school. And I did a little bit of that. Middle school wasn't a whole lot of ensemble experience for me. It was mainly when I got to high school that I started playing in more things. But freshman and sophomore year, I was part of Symphony and Sea Youth Orchestra. And then my junior and senior year, I became a teaching intern for them, which was super fun. And then freshman and sophomore year, I was also part of Philly Young Artist Orchestra as well.
Cool. So I think it's always great to see how many programs there are for young musicians, in every part of the country. I actually didn't even know that Symphony and C had a youth orchestra.
Yeah, yeah,
I played with Symphony and C on a few concerts maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but I had no
cool.
idea. So your mom sort of chose the oboe for you, but who were your earliest influences or inspirations, or what recordings did you listen to? What got you going in the first place?
It definitely took a while. I think because I started on oboe, so the first few years were definitely frustrating, and I really didn't think I wanted to play. But I started really getting into it in high school. And my teacher here, her name's Jocelyn Moore. She also works at Symphony and C. She was just a huge inspiration. My mom, even though she's not an oboist, just being a musician in general, she was a huge inspiration. And I feel like especially once I started applying to colleges and universities and just getting to know more teachers out there and listening to their recordings and their teaching, it just opened up a whole new world for me. And there are just so many people that I look up to, and it's just phenomenal. And especially even festivals that I'm involved with. Actually, right now, I'm part of the virtual National Symphony Orchestra Summer Music Institute, which finishes tomorrow.
Very
But I
cool.
had a phenomenal 3 weeks, and my teacher's Harrison Lindsay. He actually says hello. He texted me this morning, and he was like,
Is
yeah,
he gonna? Oh, he doesn't have an Instagram, so he can't tune in. But
yeah, he was like, tell Ryan I said hi. I was like, yeah, I will. But he's been an incredible teacher, and I've gotten to work with Nick Stovall and Jamie Roberts as well. And it's just so many incredible musicians to look up to and work with, and it's just awesome.
cool. Yeah, I want to go back to something that you said because I think that it's sort of an interesting issue. You mentioned that the first few years as being an oboist were kind of rough. And I
Yeah.
think this is something that a lot of us can relate to. Um, and yeah, it strikes me that sometimes when people start on other instruments that have less, technical hurdles right at the very beginning in terms of just making a sound on a basic level, um, that it's easier to become inspired. And so I think in a way, oboists and maybe bassoonists too have sort of fought this battle right in the very beginning to even just get to the point where they can say, oh, this is actually fun and this is really enjoyable and this feels like music rather than this just feels like some terrible puzzle or something.
Yeah.
So you mentioned this a little bit earlier in the live stream, but for anyone who's just joined now, where are you now? And if you're not currently where you normally go to school, tell us where you go to school.
Yeah, so I am entering my junior year at the University of Colorado in Boulder, and I'm studying with Principal Oboist of the Colorado Symphony, Peter Cooper. And right now I'm in my hometown in Collingswood, New Jersey. And actually on Sunday, me, my sister, and my sister's fiance are road tripping out to Colorado, and they're going to help me move into my new apartment for this coming year. So I'm super excited.
Oh, that's great. That's really great to hear. What is the situation going forward in terms of are you going to be at school in person next year or how's that all working?
Yeah, so there's still a lot of unknowns, especially with ensembles and playing opportunities this semester. But as far as we know, it seems like some lessons we'll be able to have in person, but it'll just be 30 minutes, and then we'll have to let the room air out for another 30 minutes. So our professor said we might do some in person, and we might just do an hour on Zoom because we'll definitely lose a lot of lesson time if that's the case. So there will be lessons still kind of a hybrid, and our classes will also be a hybrid. So there's a couple that are in person and most are online this year. So I am definitely going back because I will be able to do some things in person, but it won't be like a normal semester.
Of course. And something that I realized yesterday is that I haven't played my instrument in a room with someone else playing an instrument in, I guess, since like the middle of March. And I'm
Yeah.
curious how long it's been for you. How long has it been since you've made music with other live people in a
Yeah.
space?
Other than in my household, since my mom's a musician and my sister sometimes plays, we've done some recordings for our church to send in for some church music. Other than that, though, in an ensemble setting or people at school, it was also mid-March. I think I had to fly home on the 15th or so, and I had to just pack up my apartment in a day and get out of there, which was very hectic, but it has been quite some time since I've played with other people.
Yeah, I think that's a story that many people can relate to right now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, especially in the US. Two of the bassoonists that I was speaking with yesterday, who are both in Europe, were, oh, it's not, I wasn't really too affected by it right now. I just have lots more free time than normal.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm here in Los Angeles, California, which is just about the worst place you can be,
Yeah, the worst.
besides maybe Florida. Um, anyway, so let's get down to business. Why did you enter this competition? Was it your first competition? How did you find your way to this Norma Hooks Young Artist competition?
Yeah, so actually, this was my first competition, which is very crazy to think about. But it was actually prompted by my teacher at school, Peter Cooper. And he came up to me one day in a lesson and he said, "Oh, have you ever heard about the Norma Hooks Young Artist competition for IDRS?" And I said, "It sounds familiar, but I don't actually know too much about it." And he just told me in a lesson, he said, "I really think you should consider doing it." And I was like, okay, not really knowing much about it. And at that point, after that lesson, I went the whole week and just practiced and everything. And the next week, I came back to my lesson and he said, "Have you thought about it?" And I was kind of like, I kind of forgot about it. "Just give me this week. Like, I'm going to research it." And he was like, "Okay, well, please come back to me soon and let me know what you think." So I came back to him the next week and I did all the research and saw the pieces and the requirements of how to do everything. And I thought, yeah, might as well do it. It's just filming yourself playing, and which is definitely difficult, but there's no harm in doing it. And I thought, as a first competition, this would be super cool to do. So I went back to him and I said, yeah, I would love to do this. And actually, his former student who won in 2016, Kip Zimmerman, was at CU Boulder when he won. So Peter was telling me that he did the process with Kip and helped him with the music and everything. So he said, "I think you should do this." And it's just a great opportunity. So he was the one that prompted it. And I got the music. And actually, we were both unfamiliar with both pieces. So it was kind of like we were working on them together and learning the music together, which was super fun.
That's great. Yeah, I had a similar experience with the Alyssa Morris Four Personalities, which was one of the pieces when I worked on it, and it was there were some other students in in the Juilliard studio at the time that were also doing the competition, and it was such a cool experience to kind of learn this piece that none of us had worked on before together,
Yeah.
and share our insights about it. Um, One thing that you mentioned is making a recording, and I want to touch on that because right now, especially, this is something that every musician is, I'm sure, finding themselves doing very regularly in an
Yeah.
attempt to just kind of stay connected. I know personally, I actually spent the entire day yesterday making a video and editing and setting up microphones and trying to frame things. And I actually bought an iPhone tripod, which you're standing on right now for the first time. But anyway, tell me, what was the experience like making a recording, both from a technical standpoint and also from a musical artistic standpoint?
Yeah, it's definitely stressful for sure. I started working on the music in the fall semester, and I came back for winter break, and the plan was to record both pieces while I'm here because I know once the spring semester starts, it'll just get super busy. So I wanted to knock it out around the beginning of January. And actually, my sister's fiance just graduated with a degree in film, so he's very good with film and what mics to use and everything. So that was super helpful, and he offered to help us out for that. So I went to a church in Philly and recorded, and I only booked 2 days. So one day I was going to record the Klukart, and one day was going to be Gimignani, and that was the days that I had. So it's definitely crazy because while you're playing, you definitely hear every bad thing that goes wrong. So in your head, you're just kind of like, that was such a bad recording, we have to do it again. And I felt like I was just playing each piece so many times in a row because it just had to be perfect. Um, so that was definitely difficult because when you listen back to it immediately or even just the next day, it's kind of like you're still hearing those things in your head. And actually, in my head, I thought I have to re-record these at school because I don't think they're going to be good enough and I have to find the time now. But it's interesting because after coming back to them just like a few days or even a few weeks later, it was kind of like, oh, actually, like that was pretty good and I'm pretty satisfied with that. And I think it'll actually it'll be a good recording that I'm pleased with. So it's just such an interesting thing because in your head you're thinking that was so bad, I have to do it again. And then you play it so many times and then your face is exhausted and there's just so many things that run in your head. But yeah, I definitely need to listen to it a few days later because then I'll really hear what I think about it.
Yeah, that was something that I talked about with one of the bassoonists yesterday,
Hmm.
just in hearing his process. And he said that he records himself a lot when he practices, but the most important thing for him is to not listen to that recording for a few days. And I think that's absolutely 100% true.
Hmm.
Um, I do the same thing. And I think there's actually there can be helpful Well, there can be something gained from the both experiences, from listening right away and also from listening a few days later, because obviously when you listen right away, yeah, you latch on to all those things that have sort of like been going on in your head as you were playing.
Yeah.
And and you can see to what extent they bother you right in the moment. And sometimes they might not, bother you as much as you thought even 5 minutes ago, but yeah, listening 3 days later when you're not like waiting for that next mistake to come, or
Yeah.
a note that felt not centered or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that for sure. um so what have your goals been? Well, actually, I'll ask you one more question about the competition first. Have you ever been to an IDRS conference? Now that unfortunately you aren't able to play in person for the final round, but had you been to IDRS before in the past?
I have not. This would have been my first one, which is super exciting. So unfortunately, that didn't happen. But next year is in Boulder, where I go to school. So if everything goes well and COVID is not as bad, and if it is still hosted there, I'm very excited because they're also giving the competition finalists a opportunity to perform. So I agreed to that, and I'll also be helping out since that's my school. So even though I couldn't perform this year, it's still kind of an exciting moment and a plus because I feel like I can just represent my school and play there, which is super exciting. And yeah, I'm actually hoping, and I think this is definitely happening. I'm getting a piece commission to play there, so I'm
Wow,
very excited for that.
that's amazing. Who is the commission by?
Benjamin Boyle.
Benjamin Boyle. Is he an oboist, or does he write frequently for double reeds, or how did this commission happen?
He is one of my mom's good friends. My mom sings in a choir called The Crossing, and they do new music primarily, so she knows him through that. And I think she said that he hasn't written anything for oboe, but he's always wanted to. So my mom reached out to him and said, "This is a great opportunity, and Soph would love to perform something by you." So that is the hope that I will be able to have a piece written by him and hopefully perform it at the next conference.
That's very exciting. And you'll be a VIP as a finalist in the competition,
Yeah.
and you'll be representing your school. That sounds like a really,
Yes, it's very exciting.
yeah, great. So what are you up to for the rest of the summer? Are you kind of staying put in Collingswood, or are you moving about? Or I know you're doing the NSO online festival, but what else? What are your goals?
Yeah, so that was the main thing this summer for me was the NSO Festival, which has been awesome and great and has kept me busy, which has been fun. So they made that a 3-week program. We meet on the weekdays and weekends we have off. So that started 2 weeks ago, and tomorrow is the last day. So that has been something that I've been focusing on. At the beginning of the summer, it was, well, I came home and had to finish school, of course, so that was also keeping me busy. But then in May and June was just kind of individual practice, and I'm hoping to do my junior recital in the fall, so I'm just trying to pick repertoire and working on some new oboe music for myself. Um, but yeah, it's been challenging as well because I feel like a lot of musicians have been struggling with the motivation during COVID. So sometimes you just don't feel like practicing, or it's hard because you're not surrounded with other musicians that motivate you. And sometimes that has been a challenge this summer, but it's been great doing NSO and being able to just keep busy and do a lot of recordings for that as well. But yeah, on Sunday, I'll be headed back to Colorado and I'll move into a new apartment and I'm just going to do some adventure stuff with my sister and her fiance and travel a little bit, very safely, of course. But yeah, so I'll get settled and then start having online lessons and resume back in the fall for school.
Great. Well, that sounds like a very productive summer. I mean, it's so interesting you mentioned that thing about motivation. I had this realization that was probably similar to a realization that a lot of other people are having, which is that I have not had a day in my life since I started at a conservatory that wasn't completely scheduled for me, or at
Yeah.
least completely filled with things that were scheduled or things that I had to do, or assignments or rehearsals to prepare for, concerts to prepare for. And all of a sudden I'm waking up every day and thinking, what do I do? Like what's on the agenda? What should
Yeah.
um and I think that it requires a kind of creative thinking that, at least for me, I wasn't used to doing on a regular basis. And it's been an interesting exercise yeah, to sort of create projects for yourself and to think about what is really fulfilling. And, in this time when so many things just are totally off the table, not possible, what can we fill our lives with to still, make music and connect? And
Hmm.
yeah, it's an interesting conundrum for sure.
Yeah.
Um, what what would you say to young oboists who are entering the competition for the first time in the future?
Definitely do it. Go for it. I mean, I didn't really know much about it, and my teacher just said, I really think you should do this. And there's no harm in it. I mean, it's such a great opportunity, and I think it puts you in a position where you have to really prepare practicing new music and preparing for a recording, and it's just a really great learning opportunity as well as just a fun opportunity. Um, yeah, it's just kind of like you can prepare for anything and anything can happen. So, yeah, actually over winter break, I was super sick. I had a really bad cold and I actually wasn't playing for days. And then it was just the recording session I had planned snuck up on me, and it was very nerve-wracking because I haven't practiced in a while or just played in a while, and now I have to record these two pieces to send into a major competition. So that was just very, very crazy. But yeah, I mean, anything can happen. So definitely just go for it. It was such a great opportunity for me. I've learned a lot.
And in terms of looking way, way far in the future, um, what are you striving for? What is your ideal career as an oboist?
Yeah, I'm open for anything. I definitely want to take auditions for grad school, I think, in the future since I'm still my undergrad. And I definitely want to take as many orchestral auditions as possible. I think that would be a great opportunity, and I could definitely see myself playing in an orchestra. I could also see myself, my teacher here, she plays with Symphony and C and also has a lot of private students and is the Symphony and C librarian, and something like that also sounds super fun. I'm just open for anything, but yeah, definitely grad school would be great and taking orchestral auditions and yeah, just kind of seeing where I end up.
I actually think as you just mentioned that your teacher was also the librarian in Symphony and C, I think that we played Dvorak 9 together, which was the last thing that I played
Really?
there. I was playing English horn, and I'm pretty sure she was playing principal oboe, which is a funny coincidence, but
That's awesome.
yeah, small world. Um, let's see. I'm trying to think of what else would be helpful for our listeners to hear about. Was there anything, any sort of discovery that you've made recently, oboistic, musically, personally, that you want to share with the world? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot with that
Oh
question.
boy.
Give advice to all of us.
Yeah. Um, oh man. Well, I guess especially during this time of COVID and being very isolated in my own home and not being able to play with people. My teacher says this so many lessons when we see him is he is just trying to teach us how to be an independent artist. And I feel like especially during this time, um, I've had 3 lessons with him this summer and then a couple lessons for NSO. But other than that, I just feel like I'm trying to teach myself how to be an independent artist without a teacher, which has been very eye-opening because I am trying to learn some new music and it's kind of like, okay, how would I approach this? And, without having a lesson, like what are some things I can do, whether it's recording myself or thinking of more musical ideas and just exploring that whole realm has been very cool. It's definitely been hard. Again, sometimes motivation is not there, but I feel like I'm definitely learning how to become more independent during this time, which is a pro. I'm trying to look at the pros during this
Yeah.
time of COVID. So yeah, that's been super great. I've also had way more time to do some reed making, which is great. So that's always a plus for some practice, and I'll sell them to some students as well. So yeah, there's just been a lot going on.
Yeah, I love that idea of sort of having time to explore your own unique musical voice without, having weekly in-person lessons. I think it actually can be a very important sort of transformative period, like you were mentioning. I remember the first time that I didn't have a teacher was when, right after I finished my undergrad, and I went to the New World Symphony, which is sort of like an orchestral training program.
Mhm.
And the way that I looked at excerpts and the way that I looked at music and all this new orchestral repertoire and chamber music that I was playing just sort of shifted because I no longer felt as if I was preparing the music for evaluation. You know what I mean? I felt like I was, just preparing it as music. And I think as a
Yeah.
student, there's a certain mindset of boxes you need to check, and of, it's hard to sort of separate out the student and the artist, because on some level you are, um, under the direction and the tutelage of your teacher.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you are an independent, free-thinking musical person. So
Yeah,
it's interesting
exactly.
to sort of grapple with um, what those things mean.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time to be a musician. Very
Yeah.
interesting time to be a musician. Um, let's see, what else? What should we talk about? Should we talk about gougers? No, let's not talk about gougers. But speaking of reed making that you mentioned before, have you been trying new stuff? Are you going way off, just totally off the deep end with equipment, or have you been trying to, to stick to what you normally do? What's been your reed making experience like now that you don't have to show your reeds to your teacher every week?
Yes, that is true. That is true. A little stressful sometimes, but I'm still new-ish to reed making. I got a lot of reed making lessons freshman year with my teacher, and then since sophomore year, I've just been on my own, which is great. Great learning experience. Still a little difficult, but it's great. And recently, speaking of gouging machines, I was actually gifted a gouging machine. I have an Opus One Driscoll machine, so I've been using that. At school, we have an RDG and an Udo Hang and an Inaletti, so this is a new machine, so I'm kind of testing that out and how it feels different with, the gouge and the cane and everything, but so far I'm having luck with it, so I really like it. But I haven't changed anything like shaper tips or anything like that. That's been very similar, but it's been great being back at sea level because I feel like I can just make a reed with no problem. So that's very great because in Colorado with altitude, it's a little harder to make a reed. So it's been nice being home for that reason.
Yes, it did cross my mind because I was supposed to play at the conference this summer,
Hmm.
and obviously canceled and postponed, and they said, oh, it's going to be in Boulder next summer, and
Yeah.
part of me was, oh, that's great. I spent all 4 summers of my undergrad in Aspen, so
Yeah.
I do know, I'm very well acquainted with the struggles of
Yes.
altitude reed making. But even
Yes.
having been, 4 summers in high altitude, I can't say that it gets any easier. I don't think I've, really found the recipe. Reed making up in the mountains is just really not a pleasant thing. But
No.
I think it'll be an interesting equalizer for the next IDRS conference to see how
Yeah.
everybody deals with this sort of crazy challenge
Yeah, my
of
professor was even talking about writing up this whole thing explaining like what to do with your altitude read because it's not the same at sea level. He was like, I have to put this out there.
Yeah, that's actually that would be a good idea to send that
Yeah,
out to everyone prior to the conference. Maybe a good like month and a half, so that before everyone has made all of their reads for the conference,
exactly.
they can
Yeah,
they can
they
take
can
some
prepare.
advice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm taking sort of an opposite, or not an opposite approach, but a different approach to my read making right now.
Okay.
I'm taking I'm erasing everything that I had been doing before and sort of re-examining from the very beginning of the process, which is something that actually I had been wanting to do for so many years. I
Hmm.
didn't feel like I could do it while I was in school because, there's just this immediate pressure of always having reads for lessons and always having
Yeah.
reads for rehearsals. And also, in my job, it's on some level hard to experiment because, you have to sound good in rehearsal every day, and then
Right.
you have, 3 to 5 concerts a week.
Yeah.
Um, so I just got a bunch of shaper tips. Some of them I bought, some of them I borrowed, and I'm using different cane. I'm trying different stuff with my gouge, and just my reeds are totally wacky right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to the positive things that can come from this very strange time that we are
Mhm.
in with this coronavirus, which we're also
Yeah.
sick of talking about and hearing about. But
Mhm.
anyway, well, it was so lovely chatting with you, Sophie, and I'm
Yeah,
very
you
glad we had
too.
the opportunity to meet over Instagram Live.
Yes, this is
Um,
great.
and I'll see you in Colorado, fingers crossed, if all goes
Yes,
well.
definitely.
next summer.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you so much for hosting this interview. It was great meeting you.
Of course, and thanks for everybody who's listening. We have 20 people still. It's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
All right. Have a great day, and bye, everybody. Thank you for watching.
Bye. Thank you.